Well, hey there, crafty friends. It has been a while. It's Kathya. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And for those of you who are newly subscribed, welcome. It has been a while since I have recorded a video, but I wanted to bring this video to you because I have a fun hack. And I've been busy over the holidays trying to get ready for Christmas and also do some mass producing with my Christmas cards. So the hack I have for you is actually using your wood-mounted block stamps that you can't use in a stamp positioner. But I have a hack for you, and it is a DIY. I am not selling this at all, period. This is something to show you that you can do something very similar. And as I go along and show this to you, I will explain a different way you can do it for pennies on the dollar. You can just do it a little bit differently than the way I did. So I made this card, and when I first saw the stamp set, I saw the Recollections Merry Christmas stamp that you see on the screen there, and I loved it. And I'm like, man, I really love the font. I want to use the whole thing on a card, but I don't want to unmount the wood stamp. I want to use it as it is. And I know they have those types of corner or those angle type things where you can take the block and then position it on a piece of plastic, put the plastic on your card to kind of figure out where you want it on your white cardstock or your cardstock, and then just stamp down. But folks, I'm clumsy. I always drop that thing. So I had been racking my brain, trying to think of a way that I could mount a wood stamp to the same type of stamp positioner that we're using for clear stamps and the foam mounted stamps. I'm like, there's got to be a way. So I'd just been thinking about it, and I came up with this idea, and I'm like, I'm going to try this. I had my fingers crossed. I ordered one product, and I tried it, and it worked. So I can't wait to share it with you. So bear in mind, when the stamp positioners hit the market, like the Miss D and the Tim Holtz stamp positioner, I was first on board for getting one of those. I have this Tim Holtz stamp platform. I have two of them actually, and I love it, and I use it all the time. It really helps me by not making my projects inky or getting ink where I don't want, and of course it helps with embossing and perfect placement. So this is the stamp I used, and notice it's from Recollections. It's not made out of real rubber, but I loved the font, and I did not want to peel it off of its wood mount. I wanted to keep it as it is. So I'm just going to show you some of the products I used. I also used this beautiful stitched windy backdrop die on this pretty teal cardstock, and I love it. It turned out really pretty, and rather than bore you watching me die cut all those, I just cut them off camera, so there's nothing more boring than watching somebody die cut something over and over. And then I cut this vellum to 5.5 by 2.5 inches tall, and that was probably about the height of my sentiment that I wanted to emboss. So here is my aha moment. Do you see the stamp positioner that I'm using? Well, it is thicker on one end that is just slightly higher than a wooden mounted block stamp. So I basically just altered it because I had it that I was able to use it for clear stamps. Then today I just altered it and created a taller base that is a little bit over, I want to say almost an inch, but I definitely know that it's taller than a wooden mount block stamp. So most of my stamps, I measured them, and I think the wooden stamps are about 3/4 of an inch tall. Most of them are that height, or at least the ones I have. So I thought to myself, okay, if I know I can create a taller hinge with this, but what am I going to do to get it to stick? And then I thought, ooh, Sizzix sticky grid mat. And so I bought that. I raised the height of the back part of my stamping positioner here, and then I decided to try out using this Sizzix sticky grid mat, which is kind of intended for placing your dies in the die cutting machine so that they don't shift. So you can kind of put them exactly where you want them and they don't slip around or move. But I had a different purpose, and I thought, I'm going to try this, see if it works. And I stamped off camera just to kind of see if the sticky grid mat would hold a larger stamp, and it did. So I'm like, okay, if it holds the larger stamp, doesn't drop it, then I'm good with this one. So you can see here as I demonstrate this that I can't necessarily see exactly where I'm going to be stamping, but it gives you a general idea of you being able to position the stamp and stamp it repeatedly in the same place because it adheres really nicely to that sticky grid mat and it peels off perfectly. So at least this way I don't have to disassemble and peel apart my stamp from the wood block. I can just keep it just as it is. And I really like this stamp, and I didn't have the heart to pull this one off of its base, so I just kept as is. So as you can see here, it's stamped perfectly well, and I did the heat embossing with some embossing powder. I believe that is the, I can't remember the name of the embossing powder, but it's one of my favorites. I'm almost out of it. But I stamped this repeatedly over and over, and I was extremely pleased with the results. So this is the first one I did, and then as I kept stamping over and over, I decided, okay, well now let's make it easy and put some post-it notes so I know exactly where to put my vellum each and every time since I can't see it. And each and every time I used my anti-static powder tool, used my Versamark ink, and then stamped it over. And on a couple of occasions I did have to stamp it twice, not because of anything else, just because I didn't ink up the stamp very well. But here it goes. You can see it sticking on there really nicely, not shifting, not moving. And I pushed it right down and boom, perfect results each and every time. So really pleased with this. You could try this yourself. If you don't have a person who's handy with wood who can create something like this for you, try using a 1-inch binder. Like even if it's not a clear binder, get a binder and use your sticky post-it notes to put your card panel in place, and then buy some of the same sticky grid mat and do the same thing. Just put the sticky grid sheet inside of your binder, and you can do it that way too. You can get perfect results doing the exact same thing. So I'm pleased with this. It works for me. I just wanted to share it with you in case you guys wanted to try it too. And if you're interested, I will give you dimensions of my stamp positioner. It's basically, I think it's almost like an 8.5 by 11. I can't remember exactly how large it is, but I will measure it tomorrow, and I will give you results on exactly how high the wood is, a recollection stamp and die set. So here I am. I'm showing you a mono sand eraser part of the screen here. I will tell you this. This is the second recollection stamp and die set. And I'm not buying any more because the quality of the stamps is poor, which is why I'm sanding the edges of it to get it to ink properly. And every single time I use the die that coordinates with the stamp set, I never get perfect placement. You can see right here, I took the time to stop the video, stick my head in the screen, get it lined up as perfectly as I could, and I did. However, it just didn't cut, so the dies are not properly aligned with the stamp set, and they don't coordinate well. In fact, one that I did last year, it was a truck in a tree scene, and the truck was completely, didn't coordinate with the die at all, so I had to throw the die out because it just didn't work. So again, I'm going to stick with photopolymer stamps, and if you know anything about stamps, photopolymer is the way to go, and stamps manufactured in the USA are just really top-notch. So anyway, I digress. I am using Catherine Pooler's new ink collection, the mini stamps or the mini ink pads, and they are fantastic. They're very juicy. Little love taps is what she uses, or I think she says something like that, and she's not right. She's not wrong. Those are the greatest inks ever. They're really juicy, and I love the collection. I can't wait to use them in future videos. So I'm just about wrapping up the card here, but I broke out my new glue, the Nuvo glue here that I'm using, and I'm dotting the back of my stamped sentiment just in strategic places so that I can hide the glue in case it happens to seep out. So I didn't put very much because I plan on putting those holly berries strategically on the corners of both of the sentiment panel of vellum to help it adhere to my cardstock. So. See, here I go, butterfingers, dropping everything right and left, told you. Anyway, so I just adhered this to my card panel, and it's warping in certain areas, but I don't care because I'm going to wind up putting my foam-mounted holly berries right here, or holly leaves with the berries just on the corners towards the lower right and the upper left-hand corner of the vellum, and that will help it hold in place and not curl up so much. So I'm not going to lie, I wound up having to do card surgery, as people say in the crafting world. That holly berry set that I'm putting down right now, I had to rip that off as quickly as I could before it started to set, because I put some Nuvo drops in red on those berries, but I put too much of it, and it started to clump and turned into a big red blob, and I didn't like it. So I'm like, okay, got to move quick, got to rip this off, and I did, and I was successful. So I did edit that out, so you didn't have to be bothered with that. But here is my finished card. So I did take some of the Nouveau red berry drops and put those on the places where the berries were, and I strategically put some crystals in certain parts, and I put glue underneath that to help strategically hold the vellum down to the card panel. And that is my finished card. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed the hack. And please don't forget to leave me a like and leave me a comment in the description if you have any questions, and I'd be happy to answer them. I hope you have a great crafty day, and thanks for joining me, and ciao for now.